Now, in my last video, my previous video, I covered the 10 principles of politics, even though I'm still laughing that the word principle and politics is in the same sentence. So in this video, I'm going to cover politics, but in this case, I'm going to focus more on what we know as geopolitics and the influence of that. Now, when it comes to geopolitics, I'm no expert, but we know that some of the stuff that we have to consider and bear in mind is things like the economic power of the country, the military might of the country, the technological advancement of the country, and so on. Those are the three major influence that a country has to exert influence and power over other foreign countries. Okay, but there's another more softer geopolitical influence, and that is in terms of the country's size. And that's why you see behind Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, you see a map behind her as if she's telling the weather or she's about to give a weather forecast. Far from it. Let's move Mia Mottley out of the background and focus on what we come here to focus on. So we move her out of the background if we can, and then here we are. Now, I am going to make some comparisons between countries in terms of the geopolitics and how people perception is, because it does influence how people deal with you. And I'm going to cover Jamaica in a second, but before I do that, I wanted to cover Brazil, just to give you some perspective first. So first, let us search up Brazil. So the way this map works, you search up the country, as you can see. Yeah, you click on it, and there is Brazil. Now, if you look at Brazil compared to United States and Canada, you would say Brazil is quite small in comparison to United States and Canada. I mean, I think partly over here is Canada as well, Alaska, whatever. But this is not a true representation. If I now take this bit here and drag it over the United States, then all of a sudden, and if I zoom in a bit, yeah, just so you can see it better on your screen, maybe I zoom in too much, I'll come out a little bit. You can see that all of a sudden, Brazil looks almost the same size, if not slightly bigger than the United States. Now, if I was to flip the west side over to the east and the east side over to the west, yeah, then it will sort of superimpose over the United States nicely. And dare I say, it would be larger than the United States, just from the visuals alone. But of course, if I keep this highlighted, it gives you the actual square miles of Brazil, as you can see there. Now, if I decide that I wanted to drag it over to the Canada, it starts to expand even more. And this is not because I'm zooming in or manipulating it. What is happening is the algorithm of this map is calculating the true representation when one country is superimposed over another country for comparison in terms of its size. So that's what's going on here. So yes, of course, Canada is bigger, but even then is competing if I try to keep it outside the borders of the United States. So that's what we have there in that respect. So it now paints a different picture. Now if I zoom back out, this paints a different picture to what it was down here. If I bring it back down here, yeah, if I bring it back down here and try to place it back where it was, all of a sudden it looks small. And this is what geopolitics does. When a country can appear to be smaller or bigger than it actually is, in geopolitics, it can have some type of influence. And you might think, no, go so you talk rubbish. Okay, we're going to jump into Jamaica, as I say, in a minute, because you know Jamaican people, them not like taking a chat from nobody who them think smaller than them. So, but before we do, let's just drag Brazil over to Africa. You see, it don't even change much in size. That's how massive Africa is. It's amazing how massive. But then again, them draw Africa to be so small. If I could get the entire Africa without have to include all the separate countries, you would see a big difference. You know, if I drag Brazil over to China, that's Mongolia. That's Mongolia there. That's China down there. Yeah. So if I zoom in a bit, again, it's taking up a lot of Chinese territory. It's even going down into Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, bits of India as well. So it's kind of crazy how much it's extended, Thailand, how it's extended into other countries that's even beyond the borders of China. And even if I take it up to here to, who, you can see who they are, see the big red thing there for that territory, the Russian territory. If I drag it over there, look at that. You understand me? It's almost half the size of Russia, which is crazy because obviously you have to consider this bit and this bit. So maybe not half, maybe just under half. But it just goes to show you how representation of stuff can be misleading, because textbooks represent misinformation in a way that, they don't draw the map to have a true representation of countries. They don't do it, which is kind of sad in my opinion, but it is what it is. Now, if we clear this and we just quickly type in Jamaica, now you will see Jamaica over here. Yeah, because this is all about, the comparison. So here is Jamaica, tiny little dot. You see the yellow dot, you can't see it, you have to zoom in to see it. That's how tiny it is. And the irony of this is, when I said Jamaica don't like talk from little people, no, Jamaican, I've heard this many times from Jamaicans. Jamaicans are quick to say, them small island people, we're not really, deal with them small island people. They have this thing where they think because they're in the so-called Greater Antilles and they're among the larger islands, them have this thing over islands which are much smaller and tinier in the Lesser Antilles. I don't like the word Lesser and Greater Antilles, to be honest, because it gives a sort of an implication, imply that one is better than the other. I'd rather say the Western Antilles and the Eastern Antilles. I think that's a better way to name it. I don't know who is in charge of the naming convention, but maybe they need to look into rename that, because that can be seen as kind of derogatory towards smaller islands in the so-called Lesser Antilles. So that's that situation. But if I take Jamaica and we drag it, we know say Cuba bigger than Jamaica, but just a comparison, we drag Jamaica over Cuba. Look there, it don't even change. So Jamaica can fit in a Cuba like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4.5 times. Got a bit at this. Again, you can move the countries up and down, left and right, but you can't swivel it and rotate it, which would be cool if I could do that, but you can't. Now, of course, we know there's Haiti down here. It don't move much. If we zoom in, that's Haiti down there. Jamaica don't really move much. If I could rotate it vertically, then Jamaica would fit into Haiti with this peninsula, and this peninsula sticking out. So I would say Haiti is bigger than Jamaica, just by visuals alone. Obviously, that's the square miles they're showing you of Jamaica. Now, if you look at it when it goes over into Dominican Republic, then you can see that Jamaica can fit in the Dominican Republic probably about 3 times, at least 2.5 times. Now, for those who don't understand geography and a bit of geography lesson, we have, sorry, I just have to pull my chair up so if you hear the clunk in the background, that's me. As you know, this entire country is called Hispaniola, and Hispaniola is divided into Haiti and Dominican Republic. Now, if you take Jamaica and put it into some of these so-called other islands, Jamaica is not that much bigger. Puerto Rico, we're looking, Jamaica kind of sticks out at the edges, but not by that much, But here's the thing, they're still amongst the so-called bigger countries. But here's an interesting point that I wanted to raise. I often compare Jamaica to Singapore, isn't it? Because Jamaica is smaller. Singapore is smaller than Jamaica. Now, if I search up Singapore, if I can just type it in, Singapore. I got so many. I keep typing on the wrong keyboard because I got 2 keyboards. I got like 3 monitors in front of me and 2 keyboards. So, sometimes I'm typing on the Mac, on the Mac keyboard, and I'm actually on PC. Anyway, there is Singapore. Click on it. There is tiny little Singapore down there at the bottom peninsula of Malaysia. So if you go to the tip of Malaysia there, you see Singapore just about sticking out there. So what I want to do is drag Singapore over to Jamaica for comparison. The thing is, the distance is so far that it's going to take me a long time to drag Singapore all the way over from here, so all the way over to this. I could try and grab it, but I've tried this in the past, and if I don't see the little thing come up, I can't grab it. And see, once I see this, I can grab it. So I'm just going to pause the video and do it and then resume. Okay, so we managed to grab Singapore and drag it all the way over to Jamaica. So let me zoom in a little bit about there, and let's drag Singapore over into Jamaica. Now look how small Singapore is in comparison to Jamaica. Now look at that. You see that? You see how small and tiny that is? Now I've done videos in the past basically, you know, saying that Singapore is definitely much smaller than Jamaica, but with sort of probably 4.5 times the population or somewhere thereabouts. Now if you look at this little patch right here, that's in Jamaica, if I drag Singapore over to that patch, it just about covered the patch. If I tilt it sort of slightly horizontal, which I can't rotate it, it would have just about covered that little patch in Jamaica. This is how tiny Singapore is. There's another little dark patch over here near to Blue Mountain. So if I drag it over by where that Blue Mountain patch is and I zoom in, again, it just about covered that little patch area with a little bit. That's how small it is. So if you look at it, if I sort of bring this more in the center and zoom in, just for your edification, as they say, you can see that Singapore can fit in Jamaica like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. You can see of how we can fit in. Kingston over here, so Kingston, it's bigger than Kingston obviously, but it's about let me see, it's about 2.5 times bigger than Kingston. That's crazy. That's how tiny Singapore is. Now let me just put it in the middle for perspective for you. Now the reason why I did this is because this is where geopolitics come in, not just for Jamaica but for many other countries around the world. Size does matter to some degree, even though when it comes to Africa, Africans hasn't realized it yet and they're being exploited, as we know, by countries that's much smaller than, a matter of fact, most of the countries that exploit in Africa is smaller than Africa. The United States, Canada, Australia, most of the European countries, South America, the entire South America, you know, parts of China and other countries, they're all exploiting Africa, and Africa is bigger than them. That's crazy. But the point I want to make here in terms of Jamaica is, Jamaican people is quick to tell you, boy, we're not taking a talk from the small island people, you know. So all these small islands over here, so Jamaicans have this thing where they feel, you know, in terms of geopolitics or Caribbean politics, them have bigger talk. You know what they're saying in Jamaica? Them have a bigger talk because them are tiny small island people, yes, and they literally refer to these people as small island, which is very derogative and very wrong. Because when I hear Americans say, oh, I'm going for holiday on the islands, and they refer to Jamaica as the island, it does make me feel a way. I feel some type of way when I hear them say that. So I can imagine how these smaller islands feel when you refer to them as small island people. That's not good, because in the grander scheme of things, when you zoom out, Jamaica is hardly recognizable except for the orange dot that signifies Singapore superimposed over it. They're not much bigger than these other islands. So it's like kettle across the pot. It's just stupid. And for many people looking outside internationally, they look at us Jamaicans like we're stupid. Like, look at this small tiny island called Jamaica in the middle of the Caribbean, and them turn around and look on some other small island and I call them small island, and them not that much bigger. Now, Jamaica not taking a talk from none of these small islands, and if they try to talk to you, where they send kids Virgin Islands, where they're Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, whatever, Bahamas, Jamaica not taking a talk from these people. You understand me? I'm sure Jamaica, and that's proud, we understand it, they're not taking a talk from these people. But guess what? When you have a country like Singapore, which is so tiny. I bet you Jamaica take talk from them though, because the irony is Singapore came to Jamaica, as I've mentioned in videos before, and got the blueprint of the economical progress and prosperity, took it back to tiny little Singapore, and look at Singapore today. They outpaced Jamaica in every way: economics, technology, education, health, road infrastructure, you name it. There's nothing that Jamaica can compete with Singapore with. Yeah, I hear that little echo you're saying. Yeah, but we got music, we have artists. Singapore don't have no artists. Artists don't contribute much to the economy. Artists builds a consumer population. Singapore builds a producing population where they manufacture and then produce and export. Yeah, artists not do that. Artists build a consumerism type economy where nobody now produce nothing, nobody now manufacture nothing, nobody now make nothing, now export nothing. Everybody just a buy and a consume. You're just customers, you're not suppliers. And no economy can survive on a consumerism type of a framework. You need to have a more of a manufacturing production type framework like many of these Asian countries have. And that's where Jamaica is lacking. Before, Jamaica used to do so much. Now Jamaica is doing very little. The few countries like bauxite and so on, if you look at the people that really own and have shares in these companies. Now, I wanted to also quickly, I know the video will get, you probably click off already, but what I need you to do is, since you know not take no talk from these tiny Caribbean islands, but you know we take talk from Singapore, let's compare Singapore to some of these tiny islands on and not take no talk from, just to show you. That's Dominica. Look at Dominica compared to Singapore. If you rotate Singapore sideways, which I can't do, I can only go up and down, left and right, but I can't swivel it sideways. If I could do that, Singapore would fit into that country, that island, Dominica, quite perfectly, to be honest. Look at Guadeloupe up here. Guadeloupe is bigger, even this little part of Guadeloupe is bigger than Singapore. But then you have this other bit here of Guadeloupe as well over here. So it just puts things into perspective for you. But when I take the talk from Guadeloupe down Dominica, because you see them as smaller islands. How about not say Martinique? Martinique, same thing. If you turn Singapore sideways, it actually fits in a Martinique too. But let's go to St. Vincent. Yeah, bigger than St. Vincent. I'm not going to try with that. But I want to go to the other countries like Barbados, Grenada. There's Grenada. Grenada is a tiny island. We know that. So let's see how Singapore fare against Grenada. Grenada run them, I give them a run for their money in terms of size. Because if you swivel this and turn it sideways, yeah, Singapore is slightly bigger, but only slightly. You understand me? I'm just going off the visuals. Okay. Now, if you have which island is it? Trinidad and Tobago. Don't you so? Small island. Look on that. Look how Singapore fit in a Trinidad and Tobago. Watch it, brother. But Jamaican people now take a talk from Trinidad and Tobago though. But watch it. We know we take talk from Singapore because obviously them technologically, they financially, in everywhere, education, medical, you name it, them far superior to Jamaica infrastructure in that way. Even the military and the police far more advanced than what Jamaica have. The telecommunication system, everything, they're just far advanced. But look there, tiny little island of Singapore, look how them fit in a Trinidad and Tobago. That's Tobago up here, isn't it? Yeah, that's Tobago up there, and that's Trinidad. So according to this anyway. But the other country I wanted to quickly do it with is Barbados. Yeah, that's the one I was looking for. I don't see Bahamas because I mentioned Bahamas. So in Bahamas, yeah, maybe it's slightly bigger than the Bahamas, even if you turn it sideways. So, but it just goes to show you when you do the ratio in terms of how it looks, you start to see a different picture. Now, the other one I'm looking for is the Bahamas, but I can't find the Bahamas. My geography is lacking. Oh, there's the Bahamas up there. I'm going to have to zoom in to go up to the Bahamas. So bear with me, guys. Bear with me. The Bahamas there. There is Bahamas. Let's drag Singapore up to Bahamas. Look, they fit in the Bahamas already. Look at that. This is the Bahamas. Look at Singapore in Bahamas, brother. So this is what I'm trying to show people. In terms of geopolitics, sometimes it's not just about the military might, even though I'm sure if Jamaica was to go up against a tiny island like Singapore, militarily Jamaica couldn't stand up. The JCF can't stand up to the Singaporean military force. I'm sure of that. They can't stand up to Singapore in any way. And you might sit up there and say, well, since you have so much talk for for Singapore, why don't you go on over Singapore, go live then? Well, my heritage, my parent, my mom, she's Jamaican, so why would I want to promote? I use it as a fair comparison. So people can say, well, you compare a bigger country to a smaller country. Well, yeah, but in this regard, Jamaica have the advantage in terms of being the bigger island as opposed to the smaller island. Look how Singapore swim around Jamaica freely, like a small fish in a big pond. Watch it. It can dance up and down and twerk and do a kind of thing in Jamaica without. You understand me? But yet still they achieve so much. And what that comes down to is good governance. And dare I say, Singapore have far more respect in terms of geopolitics and international standing. Yes, Jamaica famous, but we're just famous for reggae music. That's all we're famous for. Jamaica is not the only country in the world that, make good food. Their housing, if you look at some of the houses and buildings in Singapore, go Google Singapore and see some of the buildings and houses that they build. Them not in Jamaica yet. Jamaica now have the road infrastructure, the technology, nothing to accommodate those type of buildings and houses. So what this is telling me and what this should be telling you is that if Singapore can do it for such a tiny island that can fit in I wish parish this. Clarendon, rotted. See it there? Singapore fit in a Clarendon, brother, easy. I would want to pay us up. That's Clarendon, yeah. Any other parish it can fit in it can fit in a St. Mary. That's St. Mary in it. That's St. Thomas. It fit in a St. Thomas definitely. If it's in a St. Mary, if it's in most of the 14 parish of Jamaica, I didn't even recognize that. What's this one? St. Elizabeth. Yeah, if you swivel it horizontally, it fits in a St. Elizabeth. But you get the picture. So what I'm saying to you is, if Singapore can do so well, brother, Jamaica needs to do better. And what it comes down to is governance. We've had successive governments who were greedy, corrupt, lazy, negligent, and basically just inept in terms of governance. That just go in politics, line them pocket, take as much as them can, come out rich and millionaire and billionaire, and the country just been reversing. It hasn't stand still. If Jamaica did stand still, it would have bad, but not so bad. But Jamaica has actually reversed. Back in the day when Jamaica got their fake independence, the actual living standard and what you could do with money was better. A person could work as a farmer and build a nice big mansion. They could work as a plumber, a bus driver, a carpenter, electrician, and build and buy a nice big house, or even build them nice house. Them can't do that today. You could drive a taxi or a bus and build a nice big house, brother. We're not talking about look at 2-bedroom houses. We're talking about some good, serious 5-6 bedroom houses. Do you understand me? That's not the case today. The case today, people are come out of UE with so much degree and PhDs and masters, and then still can afford a 1-bedroom house, brother, in a Jamaica. Anywhere in a Jamaica right now, because it's taken over by too much developers, most of them foreigners, and they're just in it for the money and driving a false economy in Jamaica, and Jamaicans are suffering for it. And then what's happening is the salary and the wages is not keeping up with inflation. So I'm not saying all countries don't suffer from inflation, but when you look at a tiny island like Singapore, Jamaica have no excuse. So this is why I don't rep for the green or for the orange or for Brogad or Marky G. Jamaica is actually right now in a technical recession, and the current government refuse to call it a recession because they're trying to look good on paper. Now, the technical term is if you have 2 or 3 successive decline in the economy, that's a recession, meaning you're recessing, you're going backward, you're not going forward. So economically, Jamaica has been recessing for the past 3 years, but them no want call it a recession because there's other little variables that you can throw in there that say technically it's a recession, but this gone up and this improve over here, so and that improve, and then massage the figures and then play around with people's lives like that rather than call it what it is. And this is what politics is, and geopolitics the same thing. So that's all I wanted to show you. I hope you find this interesting. I've said what I've got to say, and I'm gonna sign off.